Hello, family, and welcome to Amazing Parents Network. I am the host of this show. My name is Ali Lankarani, Dr. L, the Parent Whisperer. I'm a clinical neuroscientist, and I am very happy that you have taken the time to be here with us tonight. We have dozens of experts that are going to be presenting in the upcoming months. These are called the Family Education Series. Please invite your friends and family to come and benefit from the resources and the expertise that is going to be presented here. We're glad to have you here. We're glad to have our experts. Enjoy tonight's presenter. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm so glad to see you all here. For those of you who don't know, and this may be your first time joining me, my name is Mindy Green, and I am a neurotrained parenting coach. And what that basically means is that I use the latest findings from neuroscience to enhance your parenting, being able to understand your children's personalities and their development and how that can impact positively and sometimes negatively your relationships. And we look for strategies and solutions that help to build resilience in all of those areas. So welcome, welcome. As I said, this is Resilient Roots, and this is where we really take a deep dive into building resilience within the family for you as parents and also for your children. Because when you can do that, then the family functions better and you can find harmony in your home. And so I always raise my hand on this one because I don't know about you, but my home was not always harmonious. We all didn't always get along. I am a mom of 4, and my children are now grown. They're adults, and that's hard for me to believe, but they have grown up on me, and I have 2 beautiful grandsons, and I'm just so joyful at having this opportunity to be with in their lives as well. So I always like to take care of these little things in the very beginning and just ask that if you are joining me and you would like to share anything, you're welcome to unmic yourself and join in, ask questions as you want to, or you can also use the chat to discuss whatever you want to. So if you are here and would like to ask questions, if you would just let me know maybe where you're coming in from and the ages of your kids. That's always helpful for me to have that information. I can speak to some of the challenges or strategies that might be helpful for that age group. So with that being said, I do ask that you respect that this is a safe space and that I encourage you to respect and support each other in our discussions. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and dive into our topic for today, which is actually personality portraits. And I like to call this the cult of personality. And we're going to use the DISC model today to understand the personalities within our families. And this is one of the tools that I use when I work with families. They each take an assessment. The parents can take an assessment as well as the children. And then we combine those and we look at where the strengths are and also where there might be gaps in helping them to bridge communication issues, behavioral challenges, and meet the emotional needs, both for ourselves as parents and also for our kids. So I'm going to try to share my screen. We worked on this before, and I'm going to make sure, hopefully, that this pulls up. Okay, yes, here it is. So here we are. So this is what I wanted to, oh, no, I just closed it for some reason. Forgive me. I'm going to stop share for just a moment so that I can go back and see what I've done here. Um, let's see. Oh boy, I shouldn't have closed that. Let's see here. It is, here it is. Okay, here we are. So what I really wanted to talk about today is how we can use this information from the DISC model of human behavior to better understand what's going on within our families. So The DISC model of human behavior is based on two different observations. The first one is about pace. So this is really about like how does your motor run? Are you outgoing or reserved? Are you fast paced or slower paced? All of those things can impact our relationship with one another. And so, what is your pace? Uh, Outgoing people tend to speak and move with high levels of energy. Even their gestures and facial expressions have more passion than the more reserved person. They focus on talking things out. So I can say that I have a child who is very outgoing, and he seems like he's always on high energy level, right? So he's just, and he talks with his hands. I'm doing this now myself. So he really, that's the way that he articulates himself, and that's the way he moves through life. And then we also have the reserved people. They tend to speak more quietly, less forcefully. Their gestures and facial expressions seem to be more guarded than the expressions of outgoing individuals. They focus on thinking things through. So if you have someone in your life like this may be someone who, when you ask for their opinion about something, they may have to think it through a little bit. Or if they're going through something in their own life, they may not be willing to talk about it to begin with because they're the ones who are kind of thinking things through behind the scenes. They need a little bit of time to themselves to figure out what's going on, and then they can come back and talk about it later. So as you might see at the bottom here, it says that 10 to 20% of any challenges that we have occur over this issue. It's that mismatch sometimes of the pace. You know, when you have someone who is like go, 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 and then you have someone who's a little bit slow, has a bit of a slower pace, you can see where that might end up causing some issues. Especially, this can happen to not only in our relationships with our spouses or partners, but also with our children. So the other, excuse me, I seem to, okay. The second, the second observation of the DISC model is about priority. So, and this is how do you spend your time? This really is about whether you are about a task, getting a task done, or is it about are you more people oriented? And so someone who's task oriented, they tend to focus more on the job to be done or accomplishing a goal. They're they seem to be influenced by the opinions of others, or not as excuse me, is not as um, influenced by the opinions of others. They're more logic based in their approach, and they focus on getting things done. So, and I do this with my hand because that's how sometimes it feels. This is someone who really likes to check boxes. They like lists. They are very much about just checking those things off, and that's one of the ways that they fuel themselves. They feel accomplished when they are doing that. And then you also have the other priority, which is people oriented. And individuals like this, they enjoy the company of others. They like to focus on people as being the priority rather than the project at hand. They like to focus on just being with their people. They really enjoy that. They thrive on that. You can see their faces light up when they're around their people. And they do focus on the opinion of others and how they feel. And so, as you might um, start catching on to, that this could be a really huge area for conflict. And this is 80 to 90% of all challenges occur over this issue. And I can say personally, when I have my husband is someone who likes to check boxes and he makes lists and he's very task oriented, and I'm very people oriented. And I'm all about like, oh, let's be together, let's do things. I want our kids involved and all of these different things. And so, and not that we aren't sometimes on the same page, but I have to recognize, and we've had to learn this over the years, I've had to recognize that he has things that he wants to get done. And once he's able to get those done, then that frees up the mental energy or mental space that he even needs to be able then to focus on the people. So he's very much, let's get this done first, and then we can focus on the relationships and feelings, all those types of things. Whereas for me, it's reversed. I want to be around the people, and I want to um, focus on that rather than on the tasks. And what I've learned over the years, what's been helpful for me and for him, is to realize that we can combine those two. We can be about the people aspect of it while getting things done. So that has been something that I know that I have had to learn over the years. So I'm going to scroll down here. This is what I really wanted you all to be able to see. And this is really what are the four different parent or not parenting styles, it is parenting styles, but what are the four different personalities that the DISC model of human behavior shows us? And the first one is that dominant style. These are people who you may know in your lives who are really very strong. We might call them strong personalities. They're people who are really about getting things done. They're the doers, and they are going to get things done, and they're going to do it in a timely manner. They're probably going to be people who are really more fast paced because they're like, we've got to do this, right? They're basically extroverts, so that their energy is fed by those, um, or excuse me, dominant is, I'm sorry. I'm just going to stop for a moment and say I apologize. I'm a little bit off today. We have a new puppy in the house, and so I hear him in the background, and I'm thinking, what is he chewing on something? So please, I apologize. Let me refocus here for a moment. But anyway, so the dominant personality, yes, they're demanding, they're the doers, and their needs are always for challenge, choice, and control. When you want to speak their love language, these are going to be the things that are really important to them. They want to be challenged in what they're doing. They want to be presented with choices, and they want to feel like they have a sense of control. And when those needs are not met, what happens is they can become defiant. So if you're experiencing defiant behavior with your child, you most likely have a dominant child. And the internal and emotional needs of their style are, again, meeting those particular needs. And when you want to be able to work with them, then you want to look at how you can meet those needs in a way that will um, make them feel like they are having some control and some say in what's happening. And Ben, I thank you. Yes, my puppy can be an example of outgoing and fast paced. And I'm definitely trying to be a doer right now. And so I'm trying not to look over there and see what may be waiting for me um, once I get off the call here. But so yes, so that's the dominant personality. And if you have a dominant personality in your home, you know that they can be um, wonderful in the sense that they are going to get things done, and they have such a spirit about them that they are really looking at having um, they're going to be the go-getters, they're going to be the leaders. They really are about those types of things. And so I want to share a particular story with you about this. And um, I want to pause sharing so I can come back to you all um, and talk to you about this for a minute. But my daughter is a dominant personality, and I am actually a supportive personality, which you will see in a few minutes what that looks like. But my daughter really, we would butt heads a lot, and part of it was because she wanted to have those needs met of feeling like she was in control and that she had choice and those types of things. And so the way that she would go about it was that she would talk to me in a way that was really very passionate. And so sometimes I would take that as disrespectful, and we would have conversations about the way that she would say things. And she um, she would get upset with me because she didn't realize that it was coming across to me as disrespectful, because she was really wanting to share her thoughts, and she wanted to have more control over certain things and choices. And so we had to temper that as we went through the different stages in our relationship, and also in her childhood development. So fast forward to when she became a teenager. And so we have me who, like, can't we all just get along? And we have my daughter who's like, I want to do this. I demand to do this, and a very, very strong personality. And so we were at odds. And what was happening for her was she was getting frustrated with me because she felt like I wasn't respecting and understanding who she was and wanting to do. And I was saying to her, as the slower paced person, I was like, hey, I don't mind that you do these things, but we need to talk that through, give some thought to things. And we ended up sometimes in screaming matches, which is not in my personality at all. And so that put me under a lot of stress and tension because I was trying to give my perspective and she was trying to give hers as well. And we weren't seeing and hearing and understanding one another. So that was really a frustration that we both had with one another, especially when we went through the teen years. With one another. So I'm going to share my screen again and go on to that cautious personality. And I don't know if any of you all have these, and you're welcome to say in the chat as well what your experiences with this is. But someone who is cautious is going to be they're going to be conscientious. They're going to be very detail oriented. They're looking for quality answers. These are the kids who are going to ask you, well, why? Well, why not? And they're going to want to, and or they'll ask you these really deep questions like, well, why does the sky change colors when whatever, and when there's a thunderstorm, and they're not going to want to say, oh, well, because it's going to rain, or which is true. They're going to want to dive deeper, and they're going to want to know, well, why is that, and what's the makeup of the clouds at that point in time, and they want those deep answers. And so these are the types of people who maybe are drawn to certain careers where they're really into details. I think about maybe those who work in math, accounting, those who are engineers. They're going to be very interested in details and deeper dive into answers, and they really they speak to their values. They live their values. They want value in their lives and also excellence. So someone who's cautious can also tend to be very uh, they're really interested in I apologize again, my puppy. Next time I will make sure that I put him in his crate for a little bit of downtime. But these are people who are really going to want to take their time. Their pace is a little bit slower because they're gonna make decisions based on the answers that they receive. And doing those deep dives, they're going to be the thinkers. And when their needs are not being met, when they don't feel like they're getting the answers that they want, they can tend to be perfectionistic if they're and have high expectations of both themselves and of other people. And when those things are not happening for them, they can appear cold and withdrawn. And so if you're experiencing that with your child, if those things are happening and you're wondering, well, what's going on? It's most likely that you have that cautious child. And when they're not getting their needs met of having those answers that they want, value and excellence, they end up then withdrawing. And I have a child who's like this as well. And I have four children, so I have a little bit of everything here. And for them, one of the things that I need to do is I need to go back, and I've learned that I've had to go back and say, you know what, I don't think that I answered this as well as I would have wanted to. You had asked about this, and so you know, we can look into that together. Would you like that? Or also, I'll go back and I'll share what I have found, and that seems to have really helped in that relationship with. This is one of my sons, and he really seems to appreciate that because he wants to really dive deep into that. So we've talked about the dominant and cautious styles of personalities, and I want to go back and I want to talk about um, that we have. Sorry, here we go. Um, the supportive personality, and I had mentioned to you that I am a supportive personality, and so that means that I tend to be someone who is really I you might consider this to be more introverted. I really, though, enjoy being around people, specifically like my what I consider to be my people. That's my family, my kids, my husband, extended family. I have some close friends, and I feel like I really enjoy those particular instances where I'm with them. And so I tend to kind of be a little bit more reserved and shy. These are some of the words that you might consider. And some of the needs for people who are that supportive personality. They want to know that they're appreciated, that, that people see them for who they are, that they recognize what they bring to their relationships. They also like to hear that from other people. So it's, those words of affirmation that we can give to other people, those are also really important for these supportive styles of personality, and also security. They are most secure when they are around, their small group of people. And so security is really important for them. And if you're experiencing, and you might see here, it says when their needs are not met, sucker. And what this is they get sucked into situations. And I can attest to this, that when I was growing up, I always wanted to support other people. So I was the one who would sign up for things, and I would go out of my way to do things for people, because I wanted to give them that support that they needed. And it was also a way that made something that made me feel good. But sometimes I got sucked into situations when because it was hard to say no. And so then I would end up getting overwhelmed. And I also have a child who's like this. And what happens when those behaviors or those needs are not being met, you'll see that, and I see this with my daughter, that she tries to overly please others to meet those emotional needs. And so this is something that definitely you can see could become an issue over time, because you want them to know who they are and to feel comfortable saying no. So one of the things with a child like this is that you want to make sure that they understand boundaries. And the boundaries are really something that helps them to protect themselves emotionally, mentally, physically, for their well-being. And to recognize that boundaries are something that are not, it's not denying someone else, but it's also allowing yourself, it's also valuing yourself and not putting other people always at the forefront. It's making sure that you have um, making sure that you're also um, making doing things for yourself as well, so that there's some type of balance there, so that it's not unequal. So the next one that I wanted to share with you is the inspiring uh, personality. They are very outgoing. And I think we probably know some of these. These would be somebody who you might see as very charismatic. They have lots of friends, and they're very inspiring. They have a lot of influence other people because people like to be around them. They enjoy them. They're funny. They just seem to be those people who can draw a crowd, and you feel good when you're around them, and they really enjoy that. They love interacting. They're very people oriented. um, their needs are for recognition, approval, and popularity, and you can see that by the way that they really come to life. They're like kind of like the life of the party, and they really enjoy those times with around people. And so that's when they need that recognition, and they want the approval, and they want the popularity. And when their needs are not met, they become illogical. So if you're in illogical, can also in this case be sound impulsive, like impulsive behavior. And if you're experiencing that illogical or impulsive behavior, you most likely have a child like this. And so when you're experiencing that, and I have a child who is like this, and one of the things that happens is we've had to slow his pace down, because one of the things, I'm going to stop sharing here so I can come back to you. And what happens is that when they are when they're in the midst of doing things with their friends, they have to learn how sometimes to put the brakes on. And so one of the things that I've had to do with this particular son is, I've had to say, you know what, let's just take a walk for a minute, or let's pause, and I even use physical signs like this with him. Let's pause, so that we can think this through. And so when I give him that cue, whether it's a hand gesture or it's, just saying those words, then he's learned to be able to stop himself and say, okay, take that breath and then work through whatever's coming up. And so he's very open to whatever my opinions are or other people's opinions. And then, and he's worked on learning how to then piece all of that information together and say, okay, so this is what this is something that could happen. So you have to make sure that you outline, like, consequences as well of actions. And again, I'm not saying that these children are not very bright. They are very bright. And, it's just like my dog, is very excited when we come in the door, and, he's like jumping up and down, he's all over us, and he's running in circles around us and things like that. And so it's like, it's just, getting them to calm down for a few minutes and allow them to think through some of the impulsive ideas that they might have. And so that's something that we've done with my son over the years. And, he's really taken that to heart. And so he also has a supportive piece of his personality. And with that, then he really recognizes that sometimes, when he's in his full on inspiring, influencing mode, that can be sometimes too much for other people who are a little bit more cautious or they have a different pace. So, these are the areas that we can see then with having this information about our personality as well as our children's personalities, that we can bring in some of these insights then to help them and start working on their awareness, our awareness too, being able to adapt, and then also then to apply the right strategies so that we can then look back at them in these interactions and feel like we did the best that we could at the time, because we're giving them our focus and attention, and then also trying to parent them by what their needs are as well. And so, with that being said, I also want to talk about it from a parenting perspective between partners. And for those of you who do have partners, uh, whether that's a spouse or you, so I know some people are co-parenting, and if you're in a situation where that's a really good experience, then these are also some helpful things to consider. So when we're in situations where we have different personalities with our spouses or partners, that can also create conflict. And so, as I had said earlier, with my husband and I, we actually are both have the supportive piece of our personalities, and then his second one, because we each have these a little bit of each of these in us, and it's what when we take these assessments, it's what's finding what is the biggest driver of our personalities and behavior. And so for me, I'm supportive, and then I have that I. So it's like I really like to be around people, which and be supportive. And so my husband is supportive, and then his second one is cautious. And so for us, then one of the things that we've had to learn over time is that we both are supportive. And so for him, though, what happens when he feels overwhelmed by something that's going on, like an interaction in a relationship with, and this has happened with our kids, he then withdraws, and then I become the one who would then have to be like like have some of the dominant personality traits, which do not come easily to me. That's just not who I am. And really looking at that, and we had to talk about that some, because I wasn't feeling supported by him, because I was having to address things with, especially with our oldest daughter, who is a very dominant personality. And so I felt like in Top Gun, when there's a scene there when they're trying to get Tom Cruise's character to engage because he was just, he was in his head and he was overthinking things and he wasn't engaging and they needed him. And so I used to say to my husband, engage, engage, engage. And he didn't know how to do that. And so that's then what would cause some conflict with us is that, I felt like I wasn't getting the support. But as we were able to then go back and talk about it later, what I realized was that the way that I was saying it, because I wasn't being regulated at that time, I was saying it in a tone of voice um, that was confrontational, and that wasn't recognizing that he needed a few minutes to be able to get himself together so that he could do that, and maybe we could talk about a strategy to do that. I just wanted him to jump in, and that wasn't his forte. And it wasn't really my forte either. And so, because of that, then there would be times that I would overreact. And I would overreact with him. I would especially overreact with our dominant daughter. So that's where really being able to understand then these personalities and what it looks like in day-to-day life, right? That's the other piece of this, because you can have all of this information, but then you also have to be able to apply what you've learned. And so that's why I like to share that toolkit with the different types of personalities, because it helps us as parents to be able to understand where we're coming from. Because sometimes we bump into things that trigger us, and we have no, and unless we're developing that awareness of who we are, and what motivates us, then it can be very challenging to figure out, well, why did that trigger me so much? And why did I react that way instead of responding in the way that I would have wanted to? And so there's such power in this tool, those personality portraits. And so in your family, thinking about the different personalities, what would you say you have? Sometimes you may have all people with similar personalities, right? And so even when you have similar personalities, there can be some conflict there. Or you could have a wide variety. And so then it's like what you're having to do as the parent is look at each individual person and say, okay, so how can I best meet their needs based on what their personality type is, what they're needing from me. So this information also becomes really helpful as parents in working with the schools, because we tend to have challenges sometimes come up in the classrooms as well. And our kids come home and they tell us these stories about what's happened, or we may get an email from a teacher, and it's trying to figure out how can we best then provide information about who our kids are, what makes them tick, and how they're trying to get their needs met, because that's the other piece of this, that behavior signals a need. And we may not understand at first what that need is. And if we don't understand what's underlying it, then we can end up being offended by the behavior. But the behavior is simply a form of communication. And I don't want to take away that sometimes the behavior is not is easy to handle. Just like when my daughter would come home and she's very passionate and her arms are and hands are going everywhere, and then her voice level's getting higher and higher, and then next thing I know, she's throwing all these things at me. And as a supportive person, I'm trying to figure out how to please her. Those things can happen in the classroom too. It can happen between students. It can happen between student and teacher. It can happen between the student and other school staff. And so when we have this information, then we can take this and we can look at it and say what it is that maybe would be key takeaways for the teacher to be able to understand our child. Or for the child, when they come home and they tell us these stories, then to take a little bit of time to self-reflect with them and look at, like, okay, so this is this is the situation, and then break it down. What was going on in that situation that you felt like maybe you weren't being heard or seen or understood? And those moments that you have with your kids are invaluable. They really help the kids to be able to have that awareness as well, which they will have then for the rest of their lives. And when they can do that, and you're helping the teachers to be able to see what might be driving a certain behavior in the classroom, then they can also perhaps come back, and those are conversations that you can have as well for them to be able to see what it is that what your child is dealing with, and then they can better understand and have those insights into your child, and maybe how they can develop some strategies within the classroom that might be able to help. So, for instance, I mentioned to you that I have two grandsons, and my one grandson is very artistic. And so sometimes when he is listening in class, he likes to doodle. And um, and one of the things that the teacher was saying is that she didn't mind that he was doodling. She just wanted to make sure that he wasn't distracted. And so when we were having the conversation one day when he came home from school, and he had explained this to me, and so we just had a conversation, and I asked him, do you feel like you're distracted, or what are you noticing when you're doodling? And so he had said that when he was doodling, he was actually that was helping him to listen better to her. And so it's, something just about his personality, about the way that his brain is, that was helping him to process that information. And he also had a little bit of excess energy, and he didn't want to create a disruption in class. And so the doodles were helping him to get some of that energy out and then be able to focus on what the teacher was saying. And so once he said that, then I talked to my daughter about it, and she said that she noticed the same thing at times. And so she sent an email, a really nice email to the teacher, and they were able to have a nice conversation about that through email, about what she was seeing in the classroom, and she agreed, that it wasn't something that was taking away anything. It was just that she wanted to make sure that that wasn't, it wasn't again a distraction. So this is really just really good information. And as I said, these are all tools, and it helps. In the end, the goal is to build resilience, and we can build resilience within our families when we help them to feel seen, heard, valued, and understood, and being able to teach them how to manage different situations that they find themselves in. But just like I had said with my grandson in the classroom, that's something that was helping to build resilience, and also with that awareness of who he is and his personality. And so those are things that are their strengths, that they can build on those. And when you can do that, then you're building their confidence, their awareness, their capacity for dealing with challenges. And that again all goes back to building those resilient roots that will feed them for a lifetime. So with that, then I unless you have questions, I really don't have anything else to share about this today. I do have a resource that will be available for you all, and I will have that next week for you. And you can have the parent blueprint toolkit that I shared today during our conversation, and that's something that you can sign up for. And it will allow you to see the different things that we talked about the observations about pace and priority, and how those can affect our relationships, and then the 4 different types of personalities through DISC. So with that being said, then I just wanted to say thank you for everyone who did join me today. And if you're seeing this on replay, please know that this is just an introduction to the DISC model of human behavior. There's so much more that we can dive into with this, but I wanted you to have a good context and framework for understanding that. And also, I just wanted to say, for those of you who stood with me when I was distracted by my puppy, I promise that next week I will have him busy doing other things so that I can better focus and not be so distracted. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you'll look at the schedule of all the other wonderful speakers that we have coming up. and find things that are of interest to you that you may feel like would be of support to your families. So I will see you next week, and thank you again.